Brothers and sisters, 60% of the food Americans eat is ultra-processed. For example, there are breakfast cereals, pizza, chicken nuggets, soda, chips and snacks, frozen meals, instant soups, sauces, and much, much more. They contain unnaturally high amounts of sugar, salt, processed oils, unhealthy fats, artificial flavoring, artificial coloring, additives, and chemicals. Excessive sugar consumption is especially destructive as it's a gateway to obesity, followed by diabetes. But even in the midst of the pandemic, there are long lines in front of the fast food shops. People seem oblivious to one of the root causes: an imbalanced, unnatural diet. Americans are the most overweight population in all of human history. Unbelievably, about 80 million Americans, 42% of the population, are obese, and another 30% are overweight. According to some, a total of 90% of the population is overweight. Is it any wonder that disease sweeps through? Could it be then that ultra-processed foods and obesity are symptoms of something deeper? What, may we ask, is going on in the soul of this America? We become a nation of strangers. In all of human history, have people ever been more remote, more isolated? Witness the silence, the deafening silence of the streets. No one speaks, no one talks. The streets are so sad. How rare it is for someone to smile and say, "Good morning, brother. Good morning, sister." How tragic it is that we've all become strangers. We've also become strangers from nature. Entire ecosystems, species, wild populations, local varieties, and breeds of domesticated plants and animals are shrinking, deteriorating, or vanishing. Witness, for example, the destruction or the destruction of honeybees, for example. Pollinators are vanishing. The web of life on Earth is getting smaller and increasingly frayed. Then also, we've become strangers from the work we do. Consider a corporate farm where animals are raised in unspeakable conditions of filth and stench. They call it contained animal feeding operations. And then there is hydroponics. Instead of soil, plants and vegetables are grown in chemical soup. And these are examples, but two examples, of how alien and estranged the work we do with our hands has become. And instead it should be an expression of our creativity. And then we've become strangers from ourselves. The skyrocketing number of deaths of despair, which includes the record numbers of deaths deaths from opioid overdoses. Deaths of despair is a cry of a society that has become cut off from its vital roots. It is particularly tragic that there is a surge in suicides among teenagers and young people. Millions of Americans unable to face the moral and spiritual poverty of their lives find no escape but into drugs. The number of overdose deaths from pain medications has increased by more than 300% since 1999. With millions of Americans on psychiatric drugs, antidepressants, statin drugs, and chemotherapy, is it any wonder that people have become more remote, more distant, and more isolated than ever before? Is it any wonder that the U.S. has the lowest life expectancy among comparable countries? At the top we have Japan, Switzerland, Australia, France, Sweden, and then at the bottom, ranking 12th, is the United States. Moreover, life expectancy here has actually declined over the last few years. Tragically enough, the birth rate has fallen to the lowest record since they started keeping records in the 1890s. With millions on psychiatric drugs, antidepressants, and chemicals of all sort, an image emerges of America in its 245th year. An America overweight and drugged out, with no refuge, nowhere to run from the all-pervasive loneliness. Sure enough, in such a condition of extreme imbalance, epidemics are bound to arise. Long before the virus, we've had the epidemic of diabetes, the epidemic of high blood pressure, the epidemic of heart disease, the epidemic of inflammation, and the epidemic of cancer. The message is clear. Change the fundaments get back to a diet of living food. Imagine, if you will, a green drink of parsley, lettuce, celery, Swiss chard, and kale, blended in a blender with spring water, and this green drink with every meal. Can you relate to that? Imagine 2 meals a day, a large lunch, and then a light dinner, and that's it. And maybe even one day each week of fasting on water, if you can relate to that. Then imagine several breaks during the day for vigorous exercise. All of us, hunched as we are over our cell phones and laptops, need vigorous exercise so very much. It's a necessity. And imagine, brothers and sisters, imagine planting a victory garden this spring. A victory garden in your backyard or with friends and neighbors in a community garden. Learning to grow at least a part of the food we eat has become a necessity. It's become a survival tool. Our forebears planted victory gardens, something like 18 million of them, during the Second World War, and these victory gardens produced something like 40% of the vegetables that they consumed. We've got to get back. We've got to get back to our roots. So let's begin, brothers and sisters, by planting a tree. By planting an heirloom, historic apple tree. Now is the time. It can be done most anywhere, USA, and it will grow magnificently. Let's plant a tree as a symbol of our faith that we will renew, regenerate, and redeem these United States. Thank you indeed. Let's go forward.